Week 2 of the college football slate on the West Coast biased. We were really excited about week 1. I think we all were because there were a bunch of games and everybody was fired up. And then reality set in like, hey, we're not actually in league play and some of these teams play cupcakes because this slate is it's yucky poo-poo.
Yeah, it sucks. Yucky poo-poo. It's horse nears. This sucks. There's like, I mean, when Illinois and Duke is like, we're holding that up there as something to look forward to. I guess we got Iowa State. But yeah, it's not good. So you ignored your family all last week, and you're going to ignore them on Sunday because it's the NFL. So maybe on Saturday, like you can tell your wife or girlfriend or whatever, you're like, oh no, honey, you know what? Last week was all about me, but this week I'm going to do something special for you. And then you can go out and do something with them on Saturday. You're not missing anything. And then you can ignore them again and spend all day on Sunday watching the NFL Red Zone with 1,000 ESPN commercials.
You have said all offseason that you would take Washington and USC over Illinois and Indiana.
Yeah.
This is a big week for you because I actually think Duke wins this game. I think Duke beats Illinois.
I hope so because, like I said, I've been kind of crapping on Indiana. And by the way, I don't know if you watched any of Indiana in week 1.
Indiana Old Dominion? You don't think I watched any of that?
So, yeah, and look, I'm not saying that Washington looked like world beaters, but I do think Colorado State is one of the better, one of the more physical teams. So, of the group of 5, and USC looked great, although they played, directional JUCO school, Missoula School of the Blind, whoever that is. But I have not been a big believer in Indiana and Illinois. I think some of that is overhype. And so, yes, from my preseason prediction, I do think it'd be hilarious if the Dukies, after getting rid of Malik Murphy, who week 1 for the Beavs, if they found a way to beat Illinois, it would go a long way to warming my cold, dead West Coast heart. Because, my Washington USC prediction. I caught some flack from people who said I was being a homer. One, I believed in those teams, and I think Illinois and Indiana are kind of frauds. And more so Indiana. I think Indiana, I just think it was kind of lightning in the bottle. They didn't play anyone. Illinois is good, and we're just elevating them because that's what we do to teams that finish high in what's supposed to be the other power conference. Illinois is not the 11th best team in the country. I'm not convinced of it, and hopefully Duke proves that.
I like how people accuse you of bias with your picks. Our show is called the West Coast Bias. You seem to favor West Coast teams. Oh, do we? Is that not us?
Like, I'm not picking anyone to. I'm not picking USC to win a national title. It's just that yes, I do think that again. I think Illinois is that great example. If this had been the old Pac-12, right, and before the inevitable fall of Rome, but Illinois to me just reeks of one of those teams that we saw all the time, where they win 8 or 9 games and they bring back Arizona.
They're like an Arizona team that they finished 24th the year before and bring people back, and people go, that doesn't mean they're going to actually make the Rose Bowl. They never make the Rose Bowl.
Yes. And so I just think that's kind of where Illinois is. And so that's kind of where and then Indiana's just Kansas State. Got a bunch of transfers in there, and you got a good coach that runs a good scheme, and you played 2 good teams last year, and you got your ass kicked by both of them. So prove it without all those guys. Prove it, Indiana. And look, it's 1 week, Old Dominion, but again, Indiana's doing, and part of me, it bothers me in Indiana. I hate coward schedules. I hate it. It's my one biggest gripe I have in college football, and we reward teams, and it pisses me off. As you can tell, I'm going to get fired up right here. Let's look at the rankings, right? And by the way, I'm not sliding Oregon for playing Montana State, but how is it that if you think Texas is the number 1 team in the country, right, and then Texas goes on the road and loses by a touchdown to Ohio State and had a chance to win that game, right? That game basically came down to 1 4th down conversion. And now we punish Texas by dropping them behind Oregon. And the only thing Oregon did was stomp a mud hole in a team that had no business being on the field with them, and said as much. You don't think if Texas played Montana State, that game would look that way? And look, I don't care who's ranked 5, who's ranked 7 or whatever, but this is what I'm saying is just in general, we reward teams for playing nobody. And we reward Indiana for hiding. Indiana said what they were doing at the start of the year, that they weren't going to play anyone. And that drives me nuts. And so now supposedly we're gonna add a new component to this. We're gonna reward tougher schedules, and we're not going to punish it. Well, prove it to me. and force these teams to go out. Stop playing directional schools. Drives me nuts that's where this sport is. That Western Illinois should not be playing Illinois. They just should. Portland State. My team did it. BYU played Portland State 69-0. Really? What does that do? What does that do for BYU? Other than it gave us a warm up and Portland State got a check. Stop playing that game. I don't want to see it. Portland State doesn't want to see it. I don't think those players want. I mean, it's that stuff drives me nuts. It's my biggest peeve with college football.
You're not excited about Ohio State Grambling?
No.
Battle of the Bands, they're calling it.
How do we go from that? And we're going to sit here and be like, well, we can't play two tough games in a row. Why? Why can't you? What's wrong with that? We do it in the NFL, and we're paying these guys now supposedly like they're professionals, but we act like it's like playing Ohio State and then the next week playing another decent team. We're like, well, they can't possibly do that. I don't know where that narrative comes from that 18, 19, 20-year-old kids or 21, 22 can't handle that. In fact, you would make the argument that they should be able to handle it because their bodies recover faster than NFL guys, right? I mean, that's my gripe. That is I told you you're going to start me on my soapbox there. East Texas A&M versus that's what I got. The thing about my top 25 slate this week.
It's bad. It's really bad.
I got Florida International versus Penn State. Penn State didn't play anyone in week 1, by the way. San Jose State versus Texas, because God forbid Texas played 2 decent teams. Illinois Duke, that may be the highlight of the whole week. East Texas A&M versus Florida State, because again, Florida State can't play 2. Iowa State. I got Baylor SMU. Indiana, Kennesaw State. Right, Indiana, who went toe to toe with I forget who the hell they played. We just talked about them. Indiana took Old Dominion took Indiana deep into the game.
Oh yeah.
And now Indiana's like, well, we got to be real careful about that one. So now we're scheduled Kennesaw State. I mean, Grambling versus Ohio State. Austin P is playing Georgia. I mean. Come on.
It's really bad.
What are we doing?
It's a really
Cal
bad
Poly and you. Bethune Cookman's playing Miami.
It's the worst. It might be the worst week that I can ever remember. I'm serious. You look and there's occasionally like an Oregon, Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
That we're going to get into.
It's not
Oregon's a heavy favorite. It's not.
It's not their fault that Oklahoma State sucks.
Right. But when you schedule Grambling and Austin P and Kennesaw State, and it's up and down the Bethune-Cookman, it's up and down the board. This is one of the worst weeks I've ever seen. And we went in to do this preview thing and do a preview pod. And I was like, well, we got to talk about Oregon State, and Washington, and then let's look at the national slate. And I was like, well, that'll about do it. We'll just do the West Coast games because there's nothing on the slate. There's nothing. I mean,
there's the one I want to see is I am intrigued. If I had to put my eyeballs on one, I want to say Michigan and Oklahoma.
Sure, and that's the college game day game of the week. But you also have Tennessee against East Tennessee State. Yeah. Listen, I've even heard of Grambling. I know they're a football program. I had no idea that East Tennessee State was a team.
No.
And Tennessee's playing them. I mean, it's embarrassing.
Yeah.
Oregon, Oklahoma State. The spread's 28.5. Mike Gundy knows what's about to happen. Dan Lanning knows what's about to happen. They let the cat out of the bag. If you're worried about this one as an Oregon fan, you're missing it, because what Mike Gundy's doing is prepping for the fact that his team is about to get waxed. Yeah. Coaches don't say things like, we don't have enough money to even hang with the team before the game starts if you're a traditionally pretty good program, unless you know what's about to happen. Yeah. So they popped in the tape and went, oh, crap. Their quarterback is hurt. In week 1, they had a guy get 3 sacks. He got arrested. He's probably not playing. I haven't heard officially that he's not, but I can't imagine that he's not.
I would assume that when you get arrested and charged with 3 grand larcenies, I'm assuming he's not going to play.
But it is Oklahoma State.
It is Oklahoma State who last year their running back got a DUI, and the coaches, hand to God, you remember that Ollie Gordon, who was supposed to be this great back, and it didn't work out for him that year, but he got a DUI, and hand to God, Mike Gundy's excuse was, well, if I sit him, and it was an important game, I forget what it was.
Of course it was an important game.
And he said, well, if I sit him, it punishes everyone else. And why should I punish everyone else? Because he had a screw up. And then he basically did the, who amongst us hasn't been caught driving drunk? It was like, oh my God, Mike Gundy. Like the dude's out to lunch. But so yeah, let's not write
That's
the
right.
3 arrests off.
His excuse was like, we've all driven drunk lots of times before. He just happened to get caught. And it's like, whoa, I don't speak for everybody, but I don't drive drunk, for example. On date night we Uber.
I remember when that happened, and I played the fun game of how often is Mike Gundy been pulled over in Stillwater, just absolutely shite house drunk, and the cop being like, you know what, Mike, just go on home. He's an interesting guy, but yes, you are so right. That is the ultimate. Don't blame me when we get our ass kicked. Not my fault.
Yeah, I would say that spread's pretty safe, to be honest. And I don't normally recommend
lay the points.
28-point spreads, but Dan Lanning gave the knowing response too, that we live in this NIL space and function in it and succeed in it because we want to win. And so we're willing to spend to build the type of team that we need to build to win a championship.
Can I say, I appreciate that he is not hiding. It's like, you ever have that rich friend that's embarrassed about being rich?
Yes.
I got a buddy of mine who's super, super wealthy, like millions. And we were playing golf a couple years ago, and he had bought some new irons, and he was like, I don't really like these. And he's like, maybe next year I'll get a new set. And I'm like, what, you waiting for things to turn around? Like, what you wait for? What exactly are you waiting for, buddy? I'm like, what's a new set of clubs? Like $1,200? I'm like, I think you can swing it. Like the dude's worth millions. Yeah. And he kind of laughed, and I was like, yeah, what are you? It's okay, man. It's okay.
You don't have to pretend. You don't have to pretend.
Like you're rich. I know you just bought those. And I was like, give me those and go buy some new ones. give me those. But yeah, I love that Lanning is like, yes, yeah, we spend a lot of money. I think everyone loves to throw out these numbers, 40, and it goes up every single time. I don't exactly know the number, but yes,
it's not 40.
Oregon spends a lot of money on their roster. So does Ohio State. So does Texas. And I love that Lanning's like, yeah, we do. You should probably try to do that too. And the best line in that whole thing at the end of it was, some of us spend to win, some of us save money to make excuses when we lose. I don't know if he came up with that on the cuff, or if someone like at Wyden and Kennedy wrote that for him and he had it holstered in his hip pocket. He came in with it. He's got some great one-liners. But I'll tell you what, dude, that thing, like that's the meme when everyone starts going crazy and like starts wilding out like Nick Cannon style. It's like, ooh, like 8 Mile rap battle. Like, you went to Crane Book. That's phenomenal. Yeah. Some of us spend to win, and some of us save the money to make excuses when we lose.
Yeah.
And I think Lanning's coming for him. I don't think he's calling off the dogs. I'll go ahead and lay the 28 points because this is exactly. You don't say that if you're Mike Gundy unless you know that there is a ass whooping coming your way.
Right. And Lanning doesn't come back unless he knows it too. Yeah. Right. Like if he thinks he's being set up, it's like we're blocking out all the noise. We're focusing on our opponent. We're not worried about what anybody has to say. We're going to focus on what we do. When he's like, yeah, we spend so we can kick people's asses. Yeah.
By the way,
he knows what's happening.
He knows what happened. Wendell Gregory is the guy that was facing the larceny charges from the Walmart theft. Gundy, I had to look it up. Gundy says that he will be on the trip. He's mum on whether or not he will play.
Oh, he might play. Wow. Yeah.
So he's on the trip.
Unbelievable.
And we'll see what happens if he was their edge rusher. He had 3 sacks, and so it's Mike Gundy. Nothing surprised me at this point. That dude ran out of F's like 10 years ago. The guy's been there for like 20 years. He's got a mullet, takes his shirt off all the time. He says like the most crazy. He doesn't care. He's like Steve Spurrier without like winning. So
he's in that rare hypocrite category. That's like the very, very top of the board, like Dabo being like, if guys get paid, I'm quitting. It's like, why? You got paid. So as long as the money doesn't funnel down to the guys you're relying on, you don't want to play. There's just a few guys like that are really, really bad and really disingenuous. And he's way up there. I don't want to get into a long thing, but that I'm a man, I'm 40. There was a doc about that. And that was him. A columnist wrote what he said. He threw his quarterback under the bus and then he quoted him. And then Gundy was mad that he got quoted throwing a kid under the bus and tried to make it like the columnist said it because he wrote it. He's like, no, dude, it's your words. It's your words. I'm talking about what you guys say about him on the practice field, around the locker room. it was the most disingenuous crap because he was trying to flip it on the reporter. And the reporter was kind of saying, this quarterback doesn't have the faith of the staff. Here's some things they've said at practice. Here's some things they've said about him. And he tried to flip it like, you come at me. And the quarterback and his mom, I think it was his mom in the documentary, were saying, we knew that was posturing. We knew it was him. Like it ruined his life because people made it seem like Gundy was the hero. And to us, he was like public enemy number one because he just threw my son under the bus. Yeah. So it's really interesting that even his most viral moment is him actually being smarmy. He's just a smarmy dude. Yeah. I hope Oregon beats them by 50. I don't normally feel that way. I kind of feel that way about Clemson too, if we're being honest. I don't really like it when Dabo wins. I don't like the way Dabo carries himself. Yeah. He does have a quote about NIL being he makes the NIL tie somehow to Jesus.
Yeah, he says he builds his program on NIL, name, image, and likeness, in the name, image, and likeness of Christ.
Yeah, I mean, it's just disingenuous. I mean, it's goofball stuff that gets people riled, like to be on your side when it's dumb. Yeah. I don't like that. I hope they lose. I don't like Gundy. The only thing I'm really interested in this game about, to be honest, I feel like we saw a lot. We saw depth. We saw Kenyon Sadiq. I don't think Oregon's going to run more than the handful of plays they ran in week one. They'll add a couple wrinkles. In fact, I would expect that goal line, that diamond formation, I expect them to run some other things out of that. That's going to continue to evolve over the course of the season. So if they get in an and goal situation, look for that. And maybe they do a pitch to Sadiq or a shovel pass, or they'll add wrinkles to that.
That is the building blocks of something that you will see. It could be in short yardage, situational football. That is clearly something that they're going to do in situational football spots this year.
And then I'm looking to see how the running back rotation goes. I mean, Dan Lanning did not really shy away. He didn't say, people want to say, I've read all sorts of stuff that Mekhi Hughes was suspended. He played in the first half. This idea that he was suspended for a half is dumb. Go watch the game. He played. He got carries in the first half, or he got a carry in the first half. He wasn't suspended, at least that you can tell. He was the fifth running back to get a carry. We said that we had kind of heard maybe he'd been a bit underwhelming. I'm not saying that's necessarily even his talent level. That might be learning the playbook. There might be multiple levels of that. Might be a leadership thing. I don't know. But it is interesting to see Lanning praise Noah Whittington's leadership, his preparedness. He talked about all that. And I do think the gauntlet's been laid down to the rest of the guys that, hey, there's carries to be had here. Whoever steps up and handles it like a pro and runs well and runs hard is going to start getting more carries.
I think you said it. We were talking off the air and you kind of pointed that out. He didn't necessarily crap on Hughes, but he did say, no. Not at all. But you're right. The first thing he praised Noah Whittington, and it was not necessarily about his ability. It was about professionalism. And I wonder, and Lanning will never say it, that dude plays his cards so close to his chest. But as I was, thinking about this, and then I was listening to the post-game press conference about Noah Whittington and just kind of the way he talked about this committee, I wonder if maybe that wasn't a purpose pitch. You come in, you make a lot of money. You're the big guy coming out of Tulane, number one back in the transfer portal, depending on who you talk to. Ott got a lot, going to Oklahoma, but Hughes was one of the, at least let's say, the top 2 or 3 backs in the transfer portal. And to see that, to come into Oregon and be the 5th guy to get carries, I just wonder how much of that is, again, not picking up a system, or how much of that is wanting to prove to someone that despite where you're at, supposedly on the depth chart, what people think and what we paid you, we got a lot of really talented guys on this team. And so you're right. I think there is carries up for grab. I don't believe that we're going to see this even split, 4 carries here, 4 carries here.
No, you can't do that. You got to get in a rhythm.
You're going to get into a rhythm. And I think you said it best. I think there are carries to be had. And I will be interested to see in this game, does Mekhi Hughes, is he the 5th guy to get carries? Happens 1 game, that's something. If it happens 2, it happens 3. Now you start to wonder, or is this a case of, do we see Hughes? I'm assuming it's going to be Whittington again to get to be start after what they just said. But this rotation, or do we see a true with the freshman? Do we see a goal line situation? Right? I mean, 3 touchdown carries, and Lanning even said that he didn't know that he had that many. He was kind of surprised by
Jordan Davison just happened to get in when he got in, and he made the most of those goal line carries. It does look like, though, when they ran that double tight diamond formation in the backfield there, it did look like when they ran that formation, Davison was the guy, and he's 230 pounds. I wonder if they have him kind of labeled for that formation and give him that package.
He's just the goal line sort of situation. He's going to be that the Kenyon Barner to LaMichael James. So we'll see. So yes, that's one of those things to look at. I don't think there's much in this Oklahoma State game. Continue the development of the passing game with Dante Moore, get him comfortable, and see kind of. And I would say the same thing with the receivers. See, and it may just naturally happen over the course of these. They got like 4 or 5 games to get ready for not Ohio State, but Penn State, where there isn't any real competition. What Northwestern is mixed in there, and
Oregon State,
which look. These games can go however they want them to go. And I do want to see if there's kind of a natural progression. Does Dante Moore find comfort in one of these receivers, where it kind of becomes the go-to? Do we see a guy that starts to get 15 to 20 carries a game? Because I think by the time you get to Penn State on the road, I think you'd like to have a little bit of that pecking order sorted out at receiver and at running back.
Yeah, I also think we both agree that Noah Whittington is not RB1. He's not the guy. And you can listen, he's a good college football player. Yes. There's a reason we're not talking about him for any type of draft buzz. He's not that guy. He's a change of pace, try to bounce it outside. He tries to cut a lot and kind of, go against the grain a little more than he maybe should. And you like that in a change of pace guy because he can hit that home run for you. But you need that consistent 15 carry, I get 5 yards a pop, sometimes more guy. And I'm sure they thought it was Mekhi Hughes. And so far, 1 week in, it hasn't been. Now, is that just a challenge and say, hey, this week you didn't come prepared, so you're 5th. Oh, this week you really came prepared, you're 1. Was it just a message, or is there more? We will find that out, and I think that's interesting. And I do agree with you about quarterback receiver. We don't really know. They haven't been tested yet, but you want to see continued development there.
And this will be a step up in competition. No offense to Montana State. We know
Oklahoma State would be a 13.5 or more point favorite against Montana State. They probably would.
So this will be a step up, and that's all you want to see from Oregon is continue to stack, check the boxes as you get ready to go on the road at Penn State. And we will learn more in Penn State in a month than we will in these first 4 games, because these are all tune-up games, which again goes back to my point. This is what drives me crazy about college football. And I'm not blaming Oregon, because Oklahoma State, in theory, is supposed to be a good opponent, but
they didn't hold up their end. I mean, it's as simple as that.
But Montana State, Oklahoma State, Northwestern, and Oregon State to start the year, dude, wake me when you get to the whiteout. This is going to be a lot of, they look great again, and they put up 60. We're gonna have a month of that. And here's the crazy thing is, after that, you could win all these games by 45 points, and we're still going to go into Penn State, and we'll be doing a show, and both of us will say we don't really know.
Right.
We just don't really know.
Agreed.
And that's, and say sometimes in college football, you can go 8 weeks in. That's Indiana last year. Sometimes you can go 7-8 weeks into the season and still look at it and be like, I don't know. Like, we know they're not bad. I'll tell you that. There's zero chance Oregon's a bad team. There's zero chance that Oregon just falls on their face this year. Is Oregon, because all you're asking the question is, with a team like Oregon, Ohio State, or Texas or whatever, are they a national championship team? And that's only real judged by a couple games all year, and those aren't going to happen for a while.
Right. And they don't look like they're going to pull in Alabama. They don't look like they're a team that's just going to not show up or be physical enough.
And that's all that was. I mean, my God, there's something in the water down in Tuscaloosa. There's real issues.
Washington plays UC Davis. There's not a lot to get there. The one thing I would say is I'd like to see the front 7 continue to improve. I think we mentioned the DBs just had too many tackles in week 1. And then the offensive line looked good. And we said coming into the season that you almost need John Mills to come in as a true freshman and be a true freshman All-American. Yeah. PFF just released their top offensive line grades for the true freshman. He was number 1 in the nation. So for 1 week, he did exactly what he needed to do. Carver Willis looked good. In general, the offensive line looked good. I don't think we saw that same progress from the defensive line, although we also saw a lot more moving pieces there. They were rotating a lot more bodies. And
I was kind of reading through today and talking to someone out there that covers the team on a day-to-day basis. And they are saying that there's at least 4, possibly 5 depth pieces to that D line, because they admit they don't have, like, they were counting on maybe Durfee to be kind of this guy, and we'll see what happens. The pass rush wasn't great, and they were not very stout against the run. So if you want to nitpick a game against Colorado State, it's that. We wanted to see the two things we talked about UW, right? We wanted to see the O-line, and we needed to see the front seven. I thought the O-line played great. Coleman ran for 170 something yards and was the co-offensive player for the week. Like, I don't care who you're playing against. You run for $170, but we knew UW was going to run the ball. They ran the ball last year. Coleman's a stud, and this O-line is improved. So check those boxes. But I think when you look on the defensive side of things, I want to double check, but I think he gave up almost 5 yards a carry to Colorado State. And I know Colorado State is one of the bigger, more physical teams in the group of five, but you just, that's not exactly necessarily the performance. Now it got better in the second half, but when it was at Dupree, 15 carries, 92 yards, that's 6.1 and a touchdown.
It's a lot.
And that's not what you want to see. And again, it got better as it went along, and the pass rush got a little better as it went along. But I think that's the area. But I was talking to them. They said there's at least 4 or maybe 5 within a week or two that are going to be healthy, including the big Utah transfer, the big nose tackle, who's a Polynesian name that I'm not going to try because I'll butcher it. But there are reinforcements coming on the way. And this is going to be a work in progress. And they said this is going to be a rotational. They understand this is not a unit full of postseason candidates. There's not going to be a lot of Big Ten players on this. They're just going to throw bodies at you. So when you're throwing bodies and you're doing a rotation and you're short a handful of bodies, hopefully this run defense for them and the pass rush does get a little better. But that's probably the area against UC Davis. And it's UC Davis. It's a step down in competition. We would like to see those run numbers come down for Washington. And we'd like to see them heat up the quarterback a little bit more. Yep.
Totally agree. Oregon State, Fresno State, huge game. You lose to Cal the way you did.
It's must win.
I don't really know what to say. We talked about it for quite a while. And I'll be 100% honest. I almost felt bad because we went for probably 8-9 minutes about all the things that went wrong. We didn't even talk about Gundy calling a timeout to go for 2 when they didn't need to do that. We didn't talk about the fact that they punted down 2 scores with 6 minutes left on a 4th and 6th, where you have to go at that point. You have to go for it.
You got to.
I thought I was negative, and I have a tendency to be that way with the Beavers. That's what I get. That's the reputation I have. I didn't come close to what some Beaver fans and what some Beaver folks that cover the team. Yeah. There were some folks this week that went scorched earth where you didn't expect it.
No, Angie Machado, who I love, I think does a great job down there at Beaver Blitz, who is very positive, right? I think obviously running Beaver Blitz, right? We talked about it. When you listen to, Dogman up in Softy up in UW, you're going to get a positive spin. When you listen to Beaver Blitz, you're going to get a positive spin. And I thought Angie wrote a really fair piece this week after that game that took a lot of shots. And I don't know if taking shots is right. She was critical. And I thought she told truths. Yeah. And it's weird because in this line of work, sometimes telling truth ends up being considered being negative. Well, what do you want positive out of that? What do you want to talk? Like you had another year of being unprepared, another year of it looked like you were outcoached, another year of special teams mistakes and not calling timeouts to give up first downs, a passing attack that you spent a bunch of money on that was supposed to be better that wasn't, a run game that was supposed to be the strength of the team that wasn't. It just was bad. She even went as far as to say, the stadium was half full. They didn't show any replays. I guess not a single replay was played at Reser. And just the game day experience, the crowd was not into it. It was bad. It was disastrous. You needed a big showing for Oregon State. You needed to kind of get on even footing. And there was this narrative that Cal, with all they were losing and starting a true freshman quarterback, and they were on the road, that was going to be the one that kind of set you up for success. And it's one thing to lose that game. It's another thing to face plant and just kind of not show. And I don't know what you take as a positive out of that. Now, it is just 1 week, but even down to when you look at their schedule, that was their most intriguing home game. And I know it was a holiday weekend. I know the students aren't back yet, but my God, look at attendance figures. They weren't even in top 10 on the West Coast there was less than 35,000 announced. In reality, that was probably more like 29, 28 that were in that stadium for arguably your biggest home game. That's not good. And so let's fast forward, because we I don't want to sit here and crap all over him. This is a must win. It's absolutely a must win, because we know what's coming with Texas Tech and we know what's coming with Oregon, and it's not going to be pretty. If they lose to Fresno State at home and it looks the same, and then you lose those two games the next 2 weeks and you go to 0-4, I'm not certain how many people are on board. And it's a very manageable schedule if you can get by these first four. And so this is everything, because like behind the scenes, we talked about it. Dude, there are some whispers that things are not hunky-dory when Trent Day. They're not hunky-dory with the NIL. You have to find a way to stabilize this. You cannot let this season go sideways. And I just can't emphasize how important a good showing and a win against Fresno State is. And I don't like saying that there's must-win games in week 2. I think that's kind of silly, but I think that's a fair statement. And just again, go read Angie's piece, because when someone that positive is coming out with that after week 1, I think that lets you know where the state of this and the vibes of this program are. Because I think it was a very fair piece from a very fair and I think a very positive writer. But I thought it spoke volumes.
If you lose to Fresno State, who lost to Kansas 31-7 in week 1, and you can't do that because they lost here and because you can't do that. But just it tells you where Fresno State's at, because Fresno State at least is on par with Kansas traditionally, right? You would expect that, and this is a little bit better Kansas team than usual, and there's a little bit worse Fresno State team. If you lose to Fresno State, you are losing to Texas Tech and Oregon. And then the 5th game is Houston. Mm-hmm. Houston on paper is better than Fresno State, or at least right there with Fresno State. Yeah. You could start the year 0-5, and then you play App State. And that's at App State. App State's not a slouch. I mean, they're not just terrible. No. The other thing is Fresno State, where are they really strong? They're really strong in the offensive line. They return a lot in the offensive line. So they might be able to do some things against that's the problem with Oregon State when you start looking at matchups. We can do this all day long where we go, well, talent-wise, they're about the same. The problem is almost everyone they play is going to at least be even, if not better than them, in the trenches. They are abysmal along the offensive line and defensive line. And I don't really get how they got to that point. There was a play in that game. And again, I don't want to go back to it, but it matters because it matters for this week's matchup. There was a play that Malik Murphy got sacked by 4 Cal players at once because 4 guys got beat that bad, 4 at the same time. And they said it's a buffet line for him in the backfield. I don't really know what to do with this team when the trenches are that bad, because at that point you start to say, well, who cares if you have a huge advantage at receiver against their corners? He can't even get a few yards downfield before your quarterback's getting hit. So I don't know what to make of it. I thought it was really concerning based on some of the things I'd heard this offseason about kind of morale around the program, that Malik Murphy clapped in the offensive assistant's face and yelled at him, that a defensive player was already throwing his helmet. And the sideline announcer said that things are unsettled, and that's not the word she used, but things are unsettled already on this sideline. Yeah. It's going to get worse than Cal. It is. Yeah. You can stop the bleeding with Fresno State and say, guys, you win that game. And by the way, I actually do think Oregon State pulls out a narrow victory against that Fresno State team. They're replacing a lot of talent on the defense. Oregon State should be able to throw on them pretty well, even with a depleted O-line. You win that game and you say, guys, we are going to suffer a little bit against Texas Tech and Oregon. Let's stay together, stick together, because Fresno State might be our 4th toughest game all year. We can beat Houston. If we beat Fresno State, we've got a shot against Houston. We've got a shot against App State. We've got a shot against Wake Forest. This Washington State team that we played twice, boys, they're not very good. We've got a chance to beat them twice. There is a world where you beat Fresno State and 7-8 wins is still possible. My concern, if you lose to Fresno State and then if you lose to Fresno State, you're not beating Texas Tech or Oregon. You're 0-4. We don't even have to get into it. You then play Houston. And then we say, well, that's a make or break game on your schedule to even save face. Mm-hmm. Because if you lose that, you lose your crowd. Yeah. If you're 0-5 to start the year when you play real teams until you just play garbage, the rest of the way. And not that Washington State's garbage, but you know, they're in the same spot of no man's land. You play no man's land and teams that don't belong at your level. Yeah. Even if you win the rest of the way, is anybody going to care? Yeah. Because you're 0-5. Yeah. So it's all going to come down to this game. I like Malik Murphy's arm talent is pretty undeniable. It's pretty undeniable. The way he spins it, and we saw this with Dante Moore too. When a guy can spin it like that, you've got a chance because you can throw if you can keep him clean. You can throw for 400 on anybody. You know, maybe you give up 50 points, but you've got that special an arm behind you. Maybe you can put it together. And so if they can keep him clean, this offense could be dynamic. But I just don't know what to make of it. Yeah. I don't know what to make of this group. I really don't.
Well, and you got to find a way to run the ball too. Like I know we like,
and I don't even. Is that honestly, Suke? Honestly, is that feasible at a high level with that offensive line?
But the O-line was bad last year, and they still managed, managed to run the ball.
Fair.
So
you're right.
Like you can't have Hankerson running for less than 3 yards a carry. You just can't. Because the one thing we know about Malik Murphy, and you talked about this, Malik Murphy in a clean pocket and Malik Murphy with time can spin the ball. We saw it at Duke. But when he was under pressure and he's under duress, he is not a guy that, you know, we talked about in our NFL pod, right? The Sam Darnold. If it's 3rd and 7, you're asking him to drop back, you're in trouble. That is not the strength of his game. So you have to find, if I'm Oregon State, you just have to find a way to establish the run. If you can't establish the run, you're not going to be able to throw the ball consistently. And so to me, as much as we're going to put it on Malik Murphy, you got to find a way to run the ball. And, you have a couple good backs and you have a really good O-line coach. You got to figure it out. And figuring out how to run block is easier than figuring out how to pass block. If you're a crappy pass blocking team, there's only so much you can do, but you can kind of scheme up some runs, and it's easier to teach guys to run. And if you gave me a bad O-line or an O-line that was kind of developing, the easiest thing to do is just get them going forward and get them being aggressive. And if you can run the ball a little bit, it takes some of the pressure off the pass blocking situations. But when you fall down 14-0 and you fall down 17-0, and all of a sudden you can't really run the ball, like you can't commit to doing it, and I don't have to respect it, and now I get to pin my ears back and come. It's a recipe for disaster. So
yeah,
find a way. Kavanaugh, help us, Obi-Wan, help us, Coach Kavanaugh. Find a way to run the ball, get Hankerson going. 15 carries is not enough. I want to see Anthony Hankerson I want to see 29 carries. Come hell or high water, 29 carries against Fresno State. That's my 25, right? My over-under. It's got to be above 25. Yeah. Make him the bell cow. Run.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. No one else had more than 2 outside of Malik Murphy, which is just running for your life. I mean, this was supposed to be a position where we had depth. This is supposed to be a position where we liked our guys. But again, you can't fall down 17-0 and then expect to just run the ball.
I don't love my analysis from that last take. I don't love it. So I'll say this. I think if I'm looking for progress, I want Trent Bray to find some ways to dial up some pressure. Yeah. Create some pressure, send 5, send 6.
It was the worst pass rush in college football last year. And JKS, those first couple touchdowns, dude,
they didn't even try to get pressure.
No. So, and I get, maybe if you don't love your back half of your secondary, maybe you feel like you can't bring pressure, then bring 4 off one side, or give me a look and try to do some stuff where you don't necessarily have to bring 7 and 6 to get pressure. You can run some overload stuff. You can run some cat corners, manufacture something, find some way to bother a quarterback. Because we now have a year and 1 game where quarterbacks are literally setting up old Western mining camps in the backfield right now, prospecting, mining their gold, and then throwing for touchdown passes. And you can't have it. You can't. It's a true freshman back there. Heat him up a little bit. Make him uncomfortable.
Yep. So I'd like to see the pass rush dial some things up. I'd like to see the secondary continue to play how they played in the middle 2 quarters. I thought they played
much better, right? Want something positive, they played better.
Build upon that with Trey Glasper and Jaleel Tucker and Skylar Thomas. That's a good trio that you can kind of build with. On the flip side, I love Trent Walker. I picked him out as a sleeper when he was at Beaverton. He can't be your only receiver. He can't be your only threat. So I'd like to see the emergence of a second and third pass catcher. If I'm looking for progress from the Beavs, I don't want to see, and it's great that Trent Walker can get his 11 catches or whatever. I don't want to see that. I want him at a healthy 6, 7, 8, and then you better have 2 other guys that have 4 or 5. You need to have a second option, because good teams will just shut down Trent Walker, and then you're telling me you got nothing else. So I need to see that, and you mentioned it, the run game. That's what I need to see. If we're looking for keys, if you're a Beaver fan, you want to see him get some pressure. You want to see him start to sprinkle the ball around a little more. Murphy to sprinkle the ball. That also, by the way, means he's comfortable and he can get past his first read. So that will be telling about the pass, the pass protection. And then I need to see Hankerson run for more than 3 yards a carry, and he needs to be over 20 carries. He just does. That's just where they need to be. So that's what I'm looking for from the Beavs. I don't have a tremendous amount of optimism, but I do think they pull out a win. And if you cannot beat this Fresno State team, it's time to answer some hard questions, because it means you were a Power 5 team that got forced down, and that was not your fault.
No.
But you, within a year and a half, fumbled any lead you had over those teams in terms of talent. Yeah. And now you fully belong in the group of 5 or 6. If you start 0-5, 0-4 with this schedule, it's not acceptable.
100% agree.
Anything else nationally? They're all cakewalks. I take that back. The West Coast is deeper than we thought. I think you've already said Washington and USC are both good teams. I think they have a chance to finish in the top 25. We finally got a chance to look at Utah, and then we can put UCLA and Deshaun Foster aside for a minute. Just the physicality of Utah with Caleb Lomu and Spencer Fano.
2 best tackle combos.
They might have the best tackle combo in terms of prospects, in terms of just college football. In all of college football, their quarterback can play. Dampier is pretty good. He said it. Utah always has a defense. Utah is good, and he said it, when we have an offense. And I'm telling you something, we have an offense. I think this Utah team, if we go looking at teams that could potentially make the college football playoff, if I had to bet right now, I would bet that Utah makes it. That schedule's easy, and they are physical, and they're talented on both sides.
Yeah, and we forget, last year Utah was the favorite to win the Big 12, and then they got riddled. They pulled the 49ers, and when you hurt, what are you going to do? So maybe we just slept on Utah, because Kyle Whittingham, when the Pac-12 collapsed, dude, Kyle Whittingham was winning the conference. They won back-to-back. That's a really, really good school that puts guys in the NFL. So I do think we slept on Utah. And that 43-10 ass kicking. Dampier, by the way, 21-25, 206, 2 touchdowns. Also, by the way, 16 carries, 87 yards, 5.5 yards of carrying a touchdown. That's one guy. And look, UCLA, I get it, isn't like the end all, the be all, but UCLA wasn't an absolute doormat last year. They actually surprised some people by playing hard. So absolutely keep an eye on Utah. And then nationally, the game that I want to see is Oklahoma and Michigan. One, I want to see if Bryce Underwood is really the guy as a true freshman. And then, Oklahoma's a team that, again, no one talked about in the SEC. And they went out and they got John Mateer, who absolutely looked the part. Speaking of, former Coug. And again, it's Illinois State, but Mateer absolutely looked the part. They got Jaden Ott out of Cal, which is a weird thing. He got 1 carry. I don't know what's going on.
They Mackay Hughesed him.
But I don't know. That's in a slate full of games that is just, bland, vanilla, blowouts, whatever. Oklahoma and Michigan will kind of, that'll pique my interest, because I don't really believe Oklahoma or Michigan are real contenders in their conferences. But, whoever wins this game, they're going to sit there with 2-0 with a win over a top 25 team and a story team. I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued where that's going. So that's where my eyeballs will be from a national standpoint. We're just seeing, I think, a really talented John Mateer is really good. And I think by the end of the year, I mean, you mentioned him, you like him as a sleeper for a Heisman. John Mateer is better than anyone realizes on the national stage. And then I'm always intrigued by the freshmen. A freshman that I've heard of, because I don't do all the recruiting stuff that you do, but when I've heard of you coming out, whether it's JKS at Cal or Bryce Underwood, when I've heard of you and I'm aware, hyper aware of you, you're going to get my eyeballs. Yeah, and I want to see Underwood against some real competition.
Couple things. Yeah, I did. I placed a wager on John Mateer to be the number 1 pick in next year's draft. He is kind of my sleeper guy. I really like him. The skill set, the tape pops. It just does. He can spin it, and he's a good enough athlete. He's a sneaky guy for 1-1. And then Michigan, I found the dialogue around Michigan very weird. That game into the fourth quarter was 27-17.
Yeah.
And all I heard on Twitter, because I wasn't watching that game, obviously.
I wasn't either.
But I saw all the tweets about Bryce Underwood's delivering on all the promise. He looks incredible. I didn't see score. I really didn't. And so I just assumed they were up, like, based on the tweets. It was like 45-7 because everything was like Bryce Underwood's every bit as good as advertised. And then I looked and it was a 2-score game.
Yeah.
And Michigan had 27 points against New Mexico. Now they scored a garbage touchdown late. And by the way, the hero of that game was a running back. Justice Haynes or Justice Hayes? I always screw that up.
Haynes, who had 159, averaged 10 yards, and had 3 touchdowns.
That was the guy that really made that game for him. You take him out of that game, and it's a much different thing. Now you can't just take a guy out of a game. But that being said, this idea that Bryce Underwood just like he's the Messiah, just like we thought, I didn't feel that. So it's going to be interesting. I think this Oklahoma team with John Mateer can really score. I think their offense is really good. And I'm not yet ready to bet that Venables can't coach a defense. We'll see. There's a possibility that Michigan's not as far enough along as everybody thinks. Again, that New Mexico game, it was publicized as they steamrolled them and Bryce Underwood was incredible. Other than an insurance touchdown late, that was a pretty close game, and I think it's worth keeping an eye on. It also is really telling that Oklahoma, Michigan, who are two teams that traditionally we would say are not where they normally are, they're both a tiered below where we expect them to be right now. That's your game of the week. And by the way, there's nobody else. People can say whatever they want. There is no other game that's worth our time. It's in terms of like national prominence.
Yeah, go enjoy it. If we get some sunshine, go enjoy one of your last sunny weekends for a while. There's not a lot happening, but anyway, it's still football. We'll still end up watching. We still have the NFL, so I'm just happy football's here, even if it's not a great slate.
Heisman Trophy, Nussmeier. We ready?
Oh God, I would say if LSU ends up being the best team in the SEC, and you're the quarterback of that, you have a fighting chance.
Yeah, you got a shot.
You got a shot. I mean, like you mentioned, Mateer, but Oklahoma would have to, really kind of surprise some people. I like him
more for 1-1 than I do a Heisman for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, you got to throw Carson Beck in there now simply because Miami won. I mean, we'll kind of wait and see how this develops. Again, it's kind of silly to talk about, but Oregon's schedule is real soft. If they just steamroll everybody, again, quarterback of a team, that's how silly this stuff is. Wait and see how this happens. Does Drew Aller be that guy that comes out? But yeah, it doesn't really, because Klubnik was a guy that everyone was hyped on, and he looked like ass in week 1. So I don't know.
The arch. It's not. He's a generational talent, Suke.
I don't even know. Like, if we looked up Heisman odds right now, who is the odds-on favorite after?
I've got it right here.
It can't be Arch anymore.
It's Nussmeier at +800.
Nussmeier.
You've got Lenora Sellers at +1,000.
Oh, there you go.
By the way, I think that's an awful bet. South Carolina's not winning enough.
No.
So he would have to be so far above and beyond that an 8-4, 9-3 team could win. A guy could win a Heisman. We just don't do that anymore.
No,
this isn't the Paul Hornig era, where you just give it to the best player. Carson Beck is +1,100. Gunnar Stockton at Georgia's +1,200. Cade Klubnik 14. Dante Moore +1,600. John Mateer +1,600. Jackson Arnold +1,800. Right there with Arch and Jeremiah Smith and Sam Levitt, your boy, +1,800.
Yeah. Dare I say, after week 1, the most underwhelming group of Heisman Trophy favorites
ever
that I can remember. This might be one of those. Gino Torretta, Jason White sort of Heisman seasons. Every now and then you get one of those. You look through the Heisman trophies, and
that guy. Hey, it should be. See, I've always thought an interesting article. I've thought about doing this. The true Heisman leader, and calling it something like the true or the from scratch And you literally we don't do any preseason anything, and we're not putting odds on it. We're just ranking the contenders. So Justice Haynes would be number 1 for Michigan. Number 2 would be Devin Dampier from Utah. And you go, okay, maybe after week 2 they drop totally out. But let's have an authentic race where it's just who had the best week 1. Okay, they're the favorites. And you're not saying for betting odds. It's just literally for fans to follow. Here's the 7. Ruben Bain would be in the mix there.
Absolutely.
And you let guys actually determine who's in and out. So I always thought that would be an interesting article. But I've always gotten pushback that like it's so wildly wrong that people will think you're an idiot. Yeah. And it's like, I think if you explain the premise in the beginning, people would understand that if the Heisman were given out after 1 week, here's who would have won. If the Heisman were given out after 2 weeks, here's who would have won. And I do think there's something interesting to be said for that.
It's true, because if the running back Haynes out of Michigan had the hype of there wasn't a back that came in this year with like a lot of hype, but look,
like Ollie Gordon last year.
Yeah, Jeremiah Love had that coming in for Notre Dame this year, and he kind of no-showed in that game. But if Jeremiah Love had the game that the kid from Michigan did, we would talk about him as a Heisman favorite.
He'd be a Heisman.
If Dampier at Utah was Lenore Sellers, right? If he came in with this, if
or
Utah
Arch
had
Manning, God forbid,
then what we talk about is true. I mean, so much of that is just the narrative that we spin, and that narrative can kind of grow and develop. And there are some years where no one really kind of grabs hold, and that's where Gina Torretta and Ron Dane and Jason White ended up winning Heisman trophies. And then there's other years, Troy Smith was one of those. And then there's other years that, Lamar Jackson does things that we've never seen before, and you're like, that's the Heisman Trophy winner, or Cam Newton. So it's just so early. It's so early, but I don't want to live in a world where Carson Beck wins a Heisman Trophy.
No, me
neither.
Is there really a world where he's the best player in college football? Like, how many different things would have to go that way for him to actually win an award like that? It's insane.
If they go undefeated, then
they won't. It's Mario Cristobal.
It's Mario.
We talk about Dan Lanning. One of the things that Oregon definitely upgraded, I mean, there's lots of areas, but the biggest area that Oregon may have upgraded is that Dan Lanning so far has not lost that game that he shouldn't lose. Yeah. And Mario loses 1 or 2 every year. Yeah. Every year they play like they've got, Indiana. They'll thump. Oh, crap. They lost by 2 scores. What happened? Yeah, Mario is the king of losing 1 or 2 games every year that he has no business losing. So I don't know what they're going to be. Can you imagine before the year trying to do win-losses for a Mario Cristobal team? Because people could be like, what? You have them losing, like if it were Oregon. You have them losing to Northwestern? And it's like, dude, they could lose to anybody. It's a Mario Cristobal team. I just can't imagine doing the win-loss thing if you're a Cristobal.
He tried to. He tried to get conservative. He tried to give it away, but luckily it didn't happen.
Probably, again, we have these moments that seem to signal like the show's probably done. We're doing the Mario Cristobal, like the show's done for today. We're doing the Mario Cristobal win-loss prediction thing. We probably wrapped up week 2 efficiently when we're talking about that kind of thing. So I'm going to let you go, and we will be back next week to break down NFL and college football action. Pretty excited about it. My wife is not, because Saturday, even though they say, you can go do other things. Yeah. I'm going to be watching multiple football games. Let's be honest.
I agree. We'll be back next week, and there'll be a ton to talk about because now we have real college and real NFL, which is it's the magical time of the year. It's the most wonderful time of the year. Screw Christmas. It's right here.
The podcast is really gaining a lot of steam. I really appreciate it. We're watching the numbers and seeing it climb and climb and climb. So thank you very much. So continue to subscribe. If you don't already, please do. Tell your friends. You clearly are, because it's building and we do appreciate it. But continue letting people know. And we also have a TV announcement coming out next week. We will start having some segments on TV, the West Coast Bias. So thank you, everybody. Appreciate you.